Hey, my people. Welcome back to Coffee, Crochet, and Conversation. So today's episode, I did things a little differently. Usually I know my tarot card and I look at my list of episodes and kind of see which ones vibe together. This time I let the card take the wheel. Literally. The past two episodes were on the heavier side, so I wanted to make this week's a little lighter. So that's how, just a little behind the scenes info. All right, time for my quick weekly check-in because as always, I have updates. So first and foremost, I voted, adulting, rank S+ unlocked. The results are starting to come in. Hopefully you all got out there and voted too. And another huge moment, I finally finished my Freedom Frog. The little green bastards who's been sitting in my bag or on my shelf staring at me for like months. Are you ever gonna give me legs? Because I'm about to crawl out of here on my hands. Well, he's got legs now. Not that it matters much because he's just gonna go in my finished projects with nowhere to go bin, where all your crochet dreams go to die. And apparently, because coffee acid and turning, I've been 40 for a year, but old age, are in a heated rivalry with my stomach lining. I went and got myself an electric tea kettle, and it came with this little infuser where you can put in loose leaf teas. So it's making me feel way fancier than I actually am. So I got a sample pack and I've been kind of testing out the different flavors. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not giving up my morning coffee. They can pry that from my cold dead hands, but I might swap out my afternoon coffee for a cup of tea. Sometimes. Maybe. Hopefully. Well, we'll see. So today we've got stories, chaos, caffeine, and as always, a little tarot wisdom. Basically everything that makes this podcast spin just right. Grab your coffee, your tea, your crochet, and maybe your seatbelt, because life is spinning and we are going with it. All right, so let's talk about those days. We all have them. Their frequency might vary if you're lucky. You know the ones I'm talking about. The kind of day that starts with good intentions and ends up with you questioning every single life choice since 2002. You get up, you're like, I'm going to get my coffee and we're going to knock this day out. And then you drop your coffee. And I'm not talking just a little, you filled it up too full and it sloshed over the sides. Oh no, I'm talking the kind that defies physics and logic. Splashes on the wall, somehow reaches the ceiling. If you're lucky, you miss the cat and can avoid that full-on, bath situation. You burn dinner while you're trying to fold laundry because your husband decided to text you in the middle of the day to let you know he's out of socks. And then when you go downstairs, you realize a load has been marinating in the washer for a couple days. Congratulations! You've officially created a new life form. I expect a Nobel Prize in laundry biology, at the very least, any day now. Meanwhile, the dog decides today is the perfect day to sprint through the mud and straight into the house, like he's auditioning for a slip and slide commercial. This causes the kids to laugh. The dog thinks he's doing something good, and suddenly your floors are hosting the world's first indoor obstacle course, mud version. And then if you got little kids, bonus round. Maybe your toddler's in the kitchen turning the floor into a winter wonderland made entirely out of sugar and flour. By noon, you're not even sure what dimension or timeline you're in anymore. Here's the thing. Those chaotic spin cycle days, they force you to be flexible. You can either fight the mess or figure out how to dance in it. Usually with a mop in one hand being your microphone, belting out Adele, and your caffeine of choice in the other. And that's where sometimes creativity sneaks in as a lifesaver. For me, crochet can be like my hit the brakes moment. No matter how out of control the day feels, I can grab my hook and my yarn and suddenly the world slows down a little. I might not be able to stop the spin, but I can at least pick my pattern while it happens. And honestly, life is a spin cycle, and mine is definitely stuck on extra rinse and the load's uneven, so now the washer's halfway across the room. A fun fact here, actually front load washers can move several inches, they say, if the drum's off balance. But hey, at least we come out of it cleaner. eventually. Okay, so story time. And you already know it's going to involve patience, me questioning my life choices, sometimes yarn. One year for Christmas, I decided to make my husband's friend a Miami Dolphins blanket. He's a big Miami fan. Big team logo, aqua, orange, white. The kind of project that makes you feel wildly creative and like a gift-giving queen or king, because we don't do gender roles over here, only yarn roles. Now, I was taught this method where you crochet the base, basically, and then you can use a cross-stitch chart or a plastic canvas pattern, not the actual canvas, but the pattern, and you hand sew the picture on top. Some call it a duplicate stitch. Others call it a surface cross-stitch. I call it a test of patience and willpower, but it's how my grandmother did it, my mom did it, and that's how I learned to do it. It's super detailed work. One stitch, detailed, in the wrong spot, and suddenly your dolphin looks like a confused swordfish. I'm there, sitting in my bedroom with my door shut, had my husband and said, I got the kids, go work on your blanket. I got 2 hours of pure, undisturbed crafting time. Caffeine was flowing. I'm hyper-focused, locked in, feeling like Michelangelo of the yarn world. And, he was actually famous for painstaking details, so it fits. I finally finished the outline of the dolphin, and something just looks off. Not, oh no, I dropped a stitch off, but the kind that, makes your eyes twitch and your soul question everything. I go through from where I started, stitch by stitch, and check the pattern. And guess what? I did not mess up at the end. Oh no. I messed up at the first few stitches of that 2-hour session. 2 hours. Gone. Like a plate of cookies at a sleepover with teenagers. So at this point, I have 2 choices. I can take it all out because you can't just cut a couple of stitches. It takes the whole thing out. And redo 2 hours of detailed stitching. Or I could figure out how to fix it and move on with my sanity somewhat intact. If you guessed she took it out, I want to bless your optimistic, over-caffeinated heart. But yeah, no. There was no way I was undoing 2 hours work. I fiddled, adjusted, muttered some creative language, sent a few prayers to the yarn gods, and about 20 minutes later, I patched it so well that no one but me would know that there was something a little off. And that's the funny thing though. Even when stitches unravel a little, you just keep stitching. Channel your inner Dory. Just keep at it. Because giving up would mean you having to untangle the entire mess. And honestly, who's got the time or the patience for that? So yeah, sometimes, most times, perfection's actually just overrated. Life spins, yarn tangles, dolphins look a little weird, but it still turns out beautiful in the end. So when life's spinning, and let's be honest, it always is, you have 2 options. You can either cling to the wall like you're on one of them carnival rides where it spins really hard and you're trying not to puke, or you can figure out how to find your center while everything twirls around you. For me, and I've said this in the past, grounding comes from little rituals. A hot cup of coffee in the morning. Fun fact, studies show that even the ritual of preparing the coffee or tea can reduce stress. Maybe I do a few missions in my favorite video game, or I do a couple rows of my crochet while I catch my breath, or I take some time on the treadmill with an audiobook. Side note, research actually shows if you pair exercise with an audiobook or podcast, hey, you could use this one, increases adherence to workouts. So hey, my treadmill time counts as both cardio and personal development. When those tiny, ordinary things They remind me that chaos does not get the final say. It might hand me the yarn, but it's up to me on how I use it. Finding calm in motion keeps things from feeling hopeless. You don't need everything to stop spinning. You just need to move with it a little differently. Stop fighting the spin. Throw up your arms, scream, and enjoy the ride. And look, sometimes the best thing you can do is just surrender to the moment. Like, this is something my son actually did. Let's say your toddler decides the kitchen floor is now an art canvas and has taken sugar and flour and dumped it all over the floor. A whole blizzard. Now, you're faced with two options. You could lose your mind, your sanity, or you could grab a spoon, get on the floor, and start drawing smiley faces in the flour together. It's already a mess. You're already going to have to clean it. Might as well make it a memory. And hey, that's a bonus bonding moment too. And that's what resilience really looks like. You can't always stop the spin, but you can change your rhythm. You can take the chaos, stir in a little humor for flavor, and suddenly it feels a whole lot lighter and like a pretty damn good cup of coffee. All right, friends, it's time for Brews News, where we spill the tea, sip the coffee, and try to make sense of the world without burning our tongues. Let's start with a royal reckoning. You know, I like to do my Jeffrey Epstein updates. So in royal family drama, King Charles III has officially stripped Prince Andrew of all his royal titles. As of October 30th, 2025, he is now just plain old Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and he has been evicted from the Royal Lodge, his longtime residence. So basically, he's gone from Your Royal Highness to buddy, your rent's due. Meanwhile, U.S. lawmakers are renewing calls for him to testify about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And in a twist of timing, Alex Acosta, the prosecutor from the original Epstein case, is back under the microscope again. Newly surfaced 2007 emails show prosecutors did in fact look into Epstein's finances, which is contradicting Acosta's past testimony that he gave Congress. Lawmakers say he may have misled Congress, and now subpoenas are flying faster than the Buckingham Palace rumors. So shutdown strength. I want to preempt this by saying it is a very fast-moving story, especially with like the SNAP benefits. So this is the news as of my recording, but I record on Wednesdays and I post on Fridays, so some of this might be changed by then. Back on U.S. soil, the shutdown has now stretched into day 35, 36, 37, who knows, tying the longest in U.S. history. I think now actually it's the longest in U.S. history. So 2 federal judges just ordered the USDA to dip into the $5.25 billion in contingency funds to keep SNAP benefits. That's our food aid program running. But here's the catch. Families are only going to get about half of their normal allotment. And some states warn EBT reloads could be delayed by weeks. President Trump even posted that benefits won't be returned until Democrats end the shutdown, basically turning SNAP into a political ransom note. Meanwhile, food banks are reporting sharp increases in demand as families try to fill the gap. Remember, 42 million Americans rely on SNAP, so these delays hit hard. And I normally don't inject my personal opinion here, but I've seen comments about don't rely on SNAP, go get a job. A lot of the people who are on SNAP, from what I read, are already working. So we really need to quit yelling at the people getting SNAP that they need to get a better job and start yelling at places like Walmart and Amazon that maybe you should pay your employees enough that they don't need SNAP. All right. Soybean spin. It's our last story. This year alone, Argentina scrapped its grain export taxes, which caused Chinese buyers to rush in. And because of the tariffs, they're not buying our soybeans. They're now buying Argentinian soybeans. Meanwhile, Washington finalized a $20 billion US backed bailout package to stabilize Argentina's economy. And some officials are already floating the idea of doubling that to $40 billion, although that's not final yet. At the same time, Trump is bragging about a tremendous new 12 million ton soybean deal with China. Now, critics have pointed out that under Biden, China had already bought 25 million tons annually. And Argentina's surge this year is undercutting U.S. farmers. They were buying 25, then they went to none, and now this quote-unquote tremendous deal has them buying 12. It makes Trump's brag sound a lot like the arsonist patting himself on the back for putting out the fire. So yeah, the world's still spinning, royals are rebranding, and soybeans are apparently the new currency of political egos. Stay tuned, stay caffeinated, and if all else fails, remember, the real brew is the chaos we made along the way. You know, life's a funny thing. 1 minute, you're on top of the wheel. The next minute, you're clinging to the bottom, trying not to lose your coffee or your lunch. I've had one of those wheel moments recently. Things were going smooth with the podcast. I was feeling productive. Ideas were flowing. And then, bam, my microphone's not recording. Tech issue. It's like, okay, cool. I guess Mercury's retrograde is messing with my Wi-Fi again. And that's the spin, right? One day you're flying high. Next, you're staring at the floor, wondering who keeps pushing the universal's shuffle button on a 2-song playlist. The trick isn't to stop the wheel. It's to learn how to ride it. When life takes a sudden, like that, turn, I try to remind myself, don't cry because it's raining. Just take off your shoes and dance in it. I remember when I was a kid, it's a memory it's one of those memories as you get older, you kind of forget a lot of things, but some stick out. I remember playing in the rain with my stepdad and his nephews. We were completely drenched, laughing like the world couldn't touch us. We were running around with buckets, trying to dump it on each other. Oh, it was so much fun. So later, when my kids were little, if it was a warm rain and no like lightning and stuff, I'd take them out in the rain too. There's something about letting go, about saying, you know what, it's messy, but it's also kind of beautiful. And everyone gets a little wet sometimes. That's what resilience really is. Throwing up when the spin is not in your favor. The wheel is always moving. The trick is to keep your sense of humor while it does. Even if you have to switch to tea because coffee has sparked a little acid revolt. And if you're in one of those downswings right now, here's a little mindset tweak that I've been using. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Try asking, what can I learn from this? So when it happens again, I am armed and ready. Sometimes it's not punishment. It's the universe's way of reminding you to check your seatbelt and enjoy the view. All right, friends, it's time for our Shuffle Happens, where we go through our deck and learn the meaning of our cards. This week, and it should be to no one's surprise, is the Wheel of Fortune. Picture this. A quiet valley between two mountains. In the middle is a massive wheel carved into stone, with a metal pivot at its center and a faintly glowing door beneath it. Moss grows around the wheel, but not on its face, which tells me the wheel has been used, and it's etched with strange symbols. A little creek winds through the grass around the rock, and a lone figure stands in front of the door, waiting for the wheel to turn before stepping through the door. Calm, expectant, patient. Upright, this card signals opportunity, momentum, and change moving in your favor. Reversed, it's a reminder that sometimes change is resisted or feels like it's spinning you instead of the other way around. Either way, the wheel is turning. Cycles are happening, whether we notice them or not. For me, this card has showed up recently in my podcast momentum, family stuff, just life in general. It's a gentle nudge to trust in the process, even if the ride feels messy. A little listener reflection for the week. What's the wheel turning for you right now? Notice the shifts, the opportunities, the momentum. Wherever it's moving, it's asking you to show up. So grab your coffee and hop on. All right, friends, that is a wrap for this week's episode of Coffee, Crochet, and Conversation. No matter where your wheel's turning today, you are still on the ride. Coffee in hand, hopefully your yarn is nearby, and always a little chaos to keep things interesting. If you'd enjoyed hanging out today, don't forget to rate, follow, and share the podcast. It helps keep this wheel spinning, the coffee flowing, and maybe my sanity a little bit more intact. And as always, keep your stitches sassy, your coffee strong, and your spirit grounded.